All right, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be diving into gyro controllers. So, as some of you may know, I do enjoy using a gyro controller. It's more of a preference over using just a controller itself. I cannot aim worth nothing for using the actual stick on a controller. So gyro helps me, but I do prefer controller as far as comfort and movement and things when it comes to games. I did get pretty good on mice and keyboard, and I did use some different one-handed keyboards like the Razer one and this one over here. But I still think my overall preference is definitely controller. So I've been on a search for the best gyro controller that I could find. So I have been used and kind of testing them out, and I kind of want to give you my feedback and how I feel, and kind of which one kind of trumps the rest of them as kind of the best gyro controller that I have found as of yet. I will continue to, try and find different gyro controllers out there and test them. But I want to give you my, full honest review on which one is kind of the best for a lot of use cases, and kind of get my feedback on some troubles and things that I have with them. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and kind of dive right into it. So as you can see, I tried a bunch of different ones, and so I'm going to say this is mainly using it on PC, and I do use Linux as my main operating system, but I have used these on both Windows and Linux as well. So I can give you my feedback on that. Right out of the gate, if you are using a Linux setup, I think that the PlayStation 5 gyro or PlayStation in general gyro tends to be the better option, unless the gyro is built into the controller itself, which is a feature that I do tend to lean towards due to like having to set up, Steam input and things like that to get to the gyro exactly the way you want it. It just is more compatible and just feels better on the PlayStation version rather than like Nintendo, for instance. So with that being said, I would probably just rule out the Nintendo Pro controllers. I tried them. It seems to work pretty well. As far as Bluetooth goes, it's pretty much the only way you can do it wirelessly. And the Bluetooth latency, and sometimes with certain setups, Bluetooth isn't the best option. So being able to, have it either hardwired or with a dongle is the best. But with a lot of the Pro controllers, you don't have, the dongle option. With Nintendo, you just have Bluetooth, and in order for it to be enabled in the, switch mode in particular, you have to have it in Bluetooth. You can't typically do it in a another form. So for that reason, I would not suggest going the Switch controller route. That is just my personal opinion. I have seen people make it work, but for me, being bouncing between Linux and Windows, I don't think this is the best option. If you are just strictly using Windows, you can get away with using it, and it does seem to react a little bit better in that sense. But yeah, so I am not a huge fan of it, but I did try out this Razer controller, which is a PS5 controller, so it does have the gyro enabled. With the dongle, it did not work out the greatest. It did have issues connecting or being recognized as a PS5 controller. It was actually more so being recognized just as your standard input, D input for or X input rather for Xbox. It wasn't being recognized as a actual PlayStation 5 controller, so you did have to have it hardwired in order for that to work. I do like the kind of the form factor and the feel of this controller. I do typically like the sticks symmetrical instead of the Xbox route, but either way, I can get used to it on either one of them, but I do prefer it to be the other way. But this one just went the more Xbox route and the Xbox feel of the controller itself. But I do feel like this one kind of fell short on the gyro. I do like all of the button layouts. I'm having the extra M1 and M2 buttons over here, and also the buttons on the back of the controller as well. It was really nice and comfortable to use. And they all do have the mechanical clicks within the keys. So overall, the controller itself was great and has a little RGB, which is nice. But I do feel like the gyro wise, fell a little bit short connectivity wise on Windows and on Linux as well. So I wouldn't say this is the best choice either. And then The next one I would jump to would be this guy right here. So you may have seen another video I did on this controller or seen this online before. But basically this is trying to emulate a mouse and keyboard on a controller. So you have this trackpad kind of as your mouse input. Then you also have all of your keys are mapped as like mouse inputs. So you have like your Q and your E over here. And then you have C, R, V and F, Z, X, and Alt. You even have a scroll wheel, and then you have your touchpad as the mouse, and you have your directional buttons as the 1, 2, 3, 4 on there as well. And then you have like G, M, and then your WSD is actually bound to this right here. So yeah, so I do feel like it is a little bit of a really big learning curve to use this controller. It does take a lot of practice. I did get pretty used to it. I'm not gonna lie, especially with the aiming on the trackpad and also enabling gyro. This one you can enable gyro directly on the controller itself, which I really like. So you don't have to mess with trying to configure it in the game or trying to configure it in the Steam input to get your gyro to be working. It's going to work out of the box with the controller itself. You can do yaw, you can do the roll options. You can change it. You can even change it to only activate on certain button clicks. I actually had it activated on the touchpad itself. So whenever I was holding the touchpad, I was able to enable, gyro and use it that way, which was really nice. But really, the biggest drawback is the form factor of this controller. Having the, grip on this side is great, but not having the grip on the other side, it was just hard to use. It's hard to get used to, and I would have preferred them putting, the same trigger layout on both sides instead of having this, kind of weird button press. So to press E, you had to like lift your finger up and then be able to shoot with that, and it had like the right and left click kind of opposite the way you would do on a controller, but it is the right way you would do it on a mouse. So you actually shoot with this and then ADS with this. You can change it very easily with binding it in the particular game that you're using. But I just find it more of a headache trying to get set up and use than what it was worth. And it just wasn't that comfortable. I felt myself, kind of going back and forth, between actually just using a mouse and keyboard over this method. But I really did like the trackpad and the gyro option. So I honestly wish they'd just make a Steam controller too, and have the trackpad actually on there and be able to use it, in tandem with having, regular form factor of a controller with your sticks and the touchpad. So for that reason, I don't think this is the best option, but it is a solid option if you can get used to the form factor and the feel of this controller, and obviously get used to the mapping and the keys, which this can virtually work with any PC game because it is being detected as a mouse and keyboard. So you're not going to get any like controller features as far as like aim assist and stuff like that. But you will be able to use your gyro and your the trackpad, which I did. I did a couple. On Call of Duty, I did pretty well with it. On games like the finals, that you need a little bit more inputs and a little bit more. I wouldn't say you need more movement, but it was just a little bit harder to map everything and be comfortable on this controller than it was when I was using it with Call of Duty. So so that's this one. It can be a good one, but you do have to take your time and get used to it before kind of throwing it off to the side because it just wasn't that great. So I would say the next up would be the 8-bit DOE controller. This one it almost became my primary. I really like the form factor of it. It really feels good in the hand. I like where the stick placement is for long game usage. It was very comfortable. It's a little bit different of a ergonomics setup with it, but this is a really good versatile controller to be kind of just throw in your bag and go because it has every input type that you can think of. So it has the Switch, it has a PlayStation, it has regular X and D input, and you have all of your different options on the bottom. Right here, as you can see. Then you have your back paddles as well. It actually has a removable battery pack. So your controller can't just go dead. You can get another battery pack um, and recharge it that way. The only downside I found to it is the triggers. The triggers on the back, there is no like instant triggers. If I had instant triggers, I'd probably still be using this controller, to be honest with you. But because of not having instant triggers within FPS games and shooting games, it just kind of fell short. I did find myself using it in the finals quite a bit, and it seemed to work out. But a game like Marvel Rivals, for instance, if I'm like Hawkeye or something, and you are using gyro, when you go to hit the trigger, I don't know if you can tell, but my hands are kind of moving the controller a little bit, so your aim would go off because your gyro would be in effect, and it would start twitching, and so you kind of have to either be really light with your trigger or kind of adjust for that. So if it had the hair trigger option on it, I would love this controller. Especially because you had all the different input options, and all the different options that you could think of, and it really it was really close. It was really close with this controller. I did find that the actually the Nintendo option and Steam input ended up being the best option for it. The PlayStation input did work, but I think the Nintendo worked better on this controller for some reason. So yeah, so if the 8-bit is in more of in your price range because it's a little bit on the cheaper side as far as controllers and pro controllers go, this is a really good option. And wired only. You could do the other 8-bit but controller, which is like the Ultimate C or the Ultimate Edition. That one I did try it. I had it, and I actually swapped it out for this one, and I like this one much better than I like the other one. Connectivity wise, and all the different modes, I felt like this one was the winner. When it came to that, and it also had the black buttons on here. So if you are using it more of in the Xbox way or whatever option you have, you weren't distracted by the button layout with it having like the B and the A. You could really just use it for whatever system you wanted to use it on. So I really like this controller. It was a close one, but this is not the one that I ended up sticking with. All right, and then one that I did not have out on the table at the beginning of the video is this Gamesir Tarantula controller. This I wanted this one to work out so bad. I feel like I'm gonna give it another shot, but there were some shortcomings when it came to using this, and I think specifically it was more on the Linux side than the Windows side. So I'm probably gonna give it another try on the Windows side, but basically it had too much going on. I really like the form factor for one. So now you're back to the stick placement that I like, the form factor that I like. The back buttons were okay. I did find myself with these particular back buttons, for whatever reason, whenever you would click them, if you're holding it down, it was like registering as multiple clicks, like it was in turbo mode, even though I know it was not enabled. Turbo mode was not enabled, which you can do on this controller, but I did not have it enabled. But it would like act as if I did and continuously do the action that I was trying to do. So if I had this like labeled as crouch, I would like, be bouncing up and down, trying to crouch. And if I had it like as jump or something, it was just like enabling jump randomly. So I don't know what the issue is with the back paddles. I wish they were better, but for whatever reason, I had issues with that. And then also when I mapped this into Steam input, it had the buttons just didn't recognize. For one, it didn't recognize all of these extra buttons, obviously, but it, when I had it enabled like in PlayStation mode, which I found was the best option as far as the gyro goes and the responsiveness and everything. I found that was the best option. It does have a switch mode as well. What's really cool about this controller is that it actually changes the button layout based on which mode that you're in. So if I switch the mode on the controller, I guess it has to be connected for me to be able to switch the mode. But basically, if you switch the mode, it will. Actually, I can probably do it this way. Yep. So yes, you can see. Well, you can't really see that. Let me try to get that on the camera. So you have the A, B, and Y layout now on the camera there, and then I can switch it back to the other mode there. So it's really cool that you're able to. There we go. It's really cool that you're able to change the actual layout on the fly like that. And I really love the triggers are I love the triggers on this. They're instant when you want them to be, and you have the full throw with the trigger stops on the back. For that option, you can turn off these back paddles, but I mean, with to have a pro controller, you want to have the back paddles working. So, and I really just love the look and feel of this controller, but it just was the mapping of the buttons. For whatever reason, I would have, gyro enable as the screenshot button here. But then when I would click this, like in Marvel Rivals, for instance, I would click this and it would not register it as, I couldn't pull up the scoreboard or the score sheet. It did it in the finals as well. For whatever reason, I would not be able to actually pull it up. It would just like it would either flicker or like not come up. It just wasn't registering the click for that button. I'm pretty sure it was a Steam input issue. So this just doesn't work very well with the Steam input. If you're just using it as X input without gyro, it's actually a really good controller. So if you're not a gyro, controller person, which you wouldn't be watching this video, but if you're just using it as X input or just as a straight up, Switch controller, then I would suggest this controller. It's really nice. You can get it with like the little charging dock stand, which is really nice, and then the overall look, feel, and everything is really nice with this controller. So this one came close as well, but because of the lack of compatibility with Steam input, I just couldn't do it. So this one was out as well. So I'll put this guy back over here. And then next up, I have the Scuf, or just any PS5 controller, really. I did get the Scuf Pro controller, or I would say like DualSense Edge would be a great one as well. These are going to be a little bit more expensive as far as getting Pro PS5 controllers, but I love the feel of PS5 controllers. They're very comfortable in the hand. Obviously, I love the stick placement, as I already said. And this one in particular has the blacked out keys. So if you are using it as like an Xbox input, then it's not gonna bother you with the keys being different. You do have the option for back paddles. You can actually have 4 back paddles. I didn't use the other 2 that were in the middle here, so I ended up removing those. But this one did come with the other back paddles on the outside. It's not the most comfortable, and the click is not that satisfying as far as clicking these, but they do work, and it got the job done. And if I were to redo my Scuf controller, I would go without ribbed handles here. For whatever reason, with long gaming sessions, those end up being uncomfortable, and I keep having to like readjust my hand. I'd honestly prefer just the standard feel of the regular PlayStation 5 controller, but this controller looks amazing. Like I love the design that I got on it, because I was able to customize the controller. You can actually change the face, the icons, and everything on the controller. They do come with extra sticks. You can have like the raised one and other ones within there, but overall, gyro wise, this one does amazing. You do have to have it wired. It does not work on Bluetooth with the gyro features, because it does not recognize it as a PlayStation 5 controller. But with it having wired, it actually recognized it fully as a gyro controller, like in the finals, for instance, and actually in COD as well. So you can actually use the gyro controls settings within the game itself when you had this input selected. And then other games where you would use like the Steam input to get gyro working, and it actually worked very well. You're able to see all the buttons and configurations that you wanted. You would have to map your back buttons separately, which I always map my back buttons to right and left on the D-pad, and then map that to jump and crouch. So I was able to do that, very easily across pretty much all the controllers here as far as the back buttons go. But this is probably a very solid option. It's going to be a PlayStation 5 controller or a Pro controller. Pro PlayStation 5 controller would be a great option if you're trying to use gyro on your PC. Solid, it just works. There's really no issues. So this is definitely a great pick. So the one that I ended up going with is actually this one here, and for a couple reasons. So I know that you can see that it's in the Xbox layout and the sticks aren't exactly the way I want them, but like I said, I can't get used to either method, but I do prefer the sticks being symmetrical. But the reason I ended up going with this controller as my main gyro controller for right now, until I can find the best option, is because it has settings, which I can show you here in a second, to actually, map the gyro to the controller itself instead of having to use Steam input. So that made it very easy to just jump in a game because I already configured my, controller to have gyro on it, and I can actually map the back buttons separately. So I have, four back buttons on here. For one of them, I have mapped to actually turn the gyro on, and it actually changes the color of the um, logo there when I turn gyro on and off. So I can have that on and off very easily. So if like I'm in a menu or something, I want gyro to be off so it's not like jumping up and down, I can do that. In this controller, you can actually map any keys to actual keyboard keys as well, which is really nice. I will say that the software is a little bit janky. It is a little it's a Chinese Japanese company, and it just doesn't, some of the translations are not the greatest, and it just doesn't have a great feel or look to it, but it gets the job done. It does what it says it's going to do, but it's just a little bit janky. But if you can get past that, and once you have it set up, you really now have to use the app again. This one can do Switch mode and Xbox, but what's really nice about this is you can keep it in Xbox mode and still enable gyro. So you can have the X input, be able to recognize on any game, any device as X input, but still have gyro. So you can switch gyro on even if you're using it in Xbox mode, which I think makes it very easy to be able to just jump into a game and enable it. So I can just, Steam's going to recognize it as Xbox controller. That's fine. But I can literally turn gyro on in whatever game I'm playing. And I don't have to go in any settings. I don't have to set up Steam input. I don't set up anything. I just jump in and it's already set and turn it on. And it's going to recognize it. I can do all the other key bindings that I want to do. And then I'm good to go. So I think this is the best option right now for me. So this is the big one, I believe it's called. I'll put the name of it up here on the screen. And it's the Gale Hollow. So it does have hollow effect joysticks and also the triggers. One thing that I do wish it did have, which these triggers are really good, even for quick presses. But I do wish that it had a trigger lock on it, but it does not. But I still use it for FPS games, and it does really work really well for that. Does come with some different heights and things for the thumbsticks. So it's just overall a really good pick. I like the placement of the back buttons as well. I mean, they are really responsive and clicky. So I think this one just does a really good job. Like I said, the software could be much better. Let me actually show you that to you really quick. All right, so here's the app here. So it's the big one, and then the controller shows up. You can use it with this little dock that the controller comes with, where it has the USB receiver in the dock itself, which is really nice, and then it charges the controller. So I do love that feature. I think all controllers should come with some type of charging dock, especially if they're wireless. So being able to put that on there and pick it up and know my controller's 100% every time I go to game, it's really nice to have and really nice feel. But yeah, so I can go and connect device and then start setting. So as you can see, the translation is not the best, but here's my current configuration right here for gyro. And so I have motion, and then as you can see here, I'm having it simulate the right stick, obviously for the input for that. And then responsive mode, I have it open and close, which is basically like, toggle on and off. And so with me being able to toggle it on and off, I have it set to the M4 button on the back. So you can have it always on, which just says open, or you can have it for press. So if you want to hold the actual key to have it enabled, you can have all those options there. But I have it toggle on and off, so I can toggle it on and off, with that button press, and you can literally choose any button on the controller that you want to be that activation piece. And so you have that, and then you can change the sensor sensitivity, the horizontal sensitivity ratio for the overall sensitivity itself. You can change the response curve on the actual output and input for the sensor, which is really nice. you do get some pretty good configuration here. I wish it was a little bit more fine-tuned than what it is, but for what it is, it really does work and get the job done. The default settings actually work pretty well. You don't really have to worry about it too much. You can change it from, roll to yaw if you want to. They just have them labeled differently here, but you can have it be, the opposite there. If you want to, and then you also reverse the axis as well, which I don't know why you would do that, but that's completely up to you. And then you do have the options to add macros. You can add macros in here. Actually, let me go back here and go to the top under key maps. So you can literally map any of these things. You can add turbo to any of the keys as well. And then, so like if I want this up arrow to be a keyboard option, I can do that. Which is really cool and really nice for certain games that don't have full controller support. This is really nice if you want to map something to the escape key or something to get out of a game if you can't normally do it from a controller. So you have all those options. So it has pretty much all the features that you would want in a pro controller. So I definitely suggest giving this one a try if you haven't already. I'm still going to be on the search for the perfect one because obviously like the configuration and the layout of the controller is not exactly the way I want it. I honestly really wanted this Tarantula Pro controller to work out, but I will give it another try and see because you can do that wirelessly and still have gyro enabled. But yeah, so I went through and tried all these for you guys, so you don't have to. And if you like the video, please consider subscribing and liking it. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace.